peace. It is an honor to have you here. When we speak of magic, we do not speak only about rituals, but also about the beings that exist beyond physical reality. Contacting them, gaining information, and working with them to advantage of both sides. Here comes the uneasy part. How do we know if the other side, the spirit, agrees? Is the deal made? Is the spirit even there, or are we talking to the thin air and nothing else? Let us talk about spiritual senses. Every person in the world is unique. Some people are born with spiritual senses actually developed and reliable. But I assume that the most of us do not have them developed. Good news is, you do have spiritual senses, atrophied most likely, but able to be regenerated. The bad news is, it is a task that will take you a long time. Few lucky ones will develop them fast, but for many it is months and years of practice. So do not despair if after 6 months of practice you still can't see or hear the spirit that you evoke. It's quite normal. It is ability to see and to hear the spirit that are the senses that we seek to develop. Sensing their presence is another one, and one that tends to get developed first. Hearing them is possibly preferred, because that allows you to get direct answers right from the spirit. Without ability to hear spirit, you have to rely on other methods to know if the spirit agrees or not. For example, pendulum or tarot cards. Both are usable and quite effective for sure, but it is never as sure as the direct answer. Another replacement of the answer is when it happens that what you asked for gets done. If you get what you wanted, then the spirit quite possibly did what was requested and deserves a reward. Well, if it wasn't given one during the ritual when you asked. Okay, how do you develop these senses? You have two options. Either you actively practice them using exercises, or you let the nature take its course and let them develop on their own, as you do your occult practice. Both approaches are completely legit. There are books out there that actually focus on developing spiritual senses. I remember one that is speaking about psychic senses. How I call it is no big deal. What matters is that if you want them, you have to do your work and practice so they can develop. So what can be done to develop your spiritual senses? First, you have to learn to recognize them. You have to learn and understand what is coming to you through your spiritual senses. Then you can practice to sharpen them. It is my belief, and I admit that I can be wrong, that a lot of humans actually can sense spiritual to some little degree. We just do not recognize it as such. Unfortunately, the problem is that since you do not recognize it as spiritual, you do not know that it is spiritual. First, and I believe the key step in getting your senses understood and practiced, is meditation. Void meditation, to be specific. In this meditation, you focus only on your breath until you stop sensing your own body. When you sense only your mind, but not body, then you are there. You are in your spiritual body, and whatever you sense or see there is coming through your spiritual senses. This is technique that I use, and unfortunately, it doesn't work for everyone. Other forms of meditation will work as well. And let us be truly honest, there are no shortcuts. To master meditation to this degree takes some serious practice, and that will take you some time. Self-evolution is a hard challenge to undertake. But if you want to become more than you are, it will cost you something. It will cost you time and effort. Any real skill that you want to learn demands time to master. Now, Why is it so problematic task to learn what are your spiritual senses? Because it is truly hard, and it requires some experience to be certain about it. What we see with our physical senses is one end of the spectrum. Your own imagination is on the other end. Spiritual senses are in between, somewhere halfway between the two. Because of that, what you notice in spiritual can easily be considered as your imagination. And to be honest, it happens other way around as well. This is danger anyone who wants to discern between spiritual and imaginal has to have in mind. Until you get firm hold of what is spiritual and what comes from your own head, stay very skeptical, especially about received information. Too many spiritual teachers are seeking wisdom from their own imagination, at least in case they are genuinely trying to contact spiritual realm. This is unfortunate path of self-delusion that can be very hard to leave, especially if the person starts making money from their spiritual communication, especially if we are speaking about huge money. Such person is very unlikely to even admit that they could be wrong. Besides, they have no special connection to spiritual realms. Anyone can achieve this ability. It just takes some serious work. Can we check if these people are truly what they say? Can we be sure that they are in contact with the spirits? Here we meet the same issue as speaking about color with blind people. Only those who see can tell. If you want to know if they are true or fake, you have to develop your own sensitivity. No other way to be sure. Only person who has spiritual senses can see how these things really are. Still willing to do the work? Good. Meditation is key practice to learn to recognize your senses and the difference between them and your imagination. What people fail to do is to repeat the state. They succeed once, get some contact, and ever since they ride on imagination. No, that's not right. After one experience, you can only be sure that they exist, that spiritual realms exist. But you have to remain skeptical about what is what and keep practicing. As you keep practicing, not only the difference will become obvious, but you can start developing ability to use your spiritual senses in fully wake-up state. Here, however, I have to say a word of warning. Be careful not to mix spiritual and physical. Even worse, physical, spiritual, and imaginal into one. You do not want to become unable to tell the difference between real and unreal, and you want to be able to shut these higher senses down. Balance and moderation is important, so learn not only how to awaken those senses, but also how to shut them down. Grounding into physical body is a good example of exercise that works that way. There are others. I'm sure you can find the right one for you. It is important to be able to shut the spiritual gates down. There are good reasons for it. Keep in mind that spiritual world is not physical world. What happens there is not always connected to material world, and what goes on physically might have little or even no connection to spiritual. So being able to be in one of them only is skill just as important as the ability to reach the spirit world. In other words, enough is enough. Too much of anything is damaging, even too much of spirituality. Once you are able to safely recognize what are your spiritual senses and what is imagination, then you will notice how they work when you do the occult arts. Honestly, the development is hardly ever like I said here in the clear manner. You might first develop spiritual seeing, but won't hear anything for many months. Or you can start hear spirits, but remain blind for a long time. Individuality will definitely play a role. And you might not even focus during your meditation on this goal, and you might still develop them. Unfortunately, there can also appear disabilities. There are people who have aphantasia, being unable to imagine things. I have no idea how it must be for them. But that doesn't limit them as humans. Just as much, it doesn't limit them as occultists. They just have to use different ways of working their occult practice. So it can happen that your senses will never develop. But do not panic. Even with such limitation, you can still do magic quite well and become quite skilled magician. After all, just very few have advantage in this matter, and the most of us start blind anyway. It is you and your path. What is your goal with the occult anyway? Is it exploring the spiritual realms? Or is it improving your life here? Because it is wiser to focus on your life here, and if the senses come, it is a bonus, a luxury. You still want them? Okay, go for them. Why do I speak like this? I think that these senses are skill of lesser importance than focus and discipline. Discipline especially. If you are not able to make your daily practice non-negotiable part of your day, then you have a problem that won't get solved by ability to see spirits. But I cannot judge the goals of others. You do you, I do me. Though I admit one thing, exploring spiritual realms sounds quite cool. Speaking with spirits sounds cool too. But let me tell you something. Do not expect miracles. Do not expect all-knowing spirits. They are beings just like you and me, limited with their own intentions, with their own feelings. Because they are alive too, in their own way. There are few facts about the spirits that you should definitely understand. They are not higher beings compared to humans. They live different, but are not better or higher beings because they live elsewhere. I use the term higher because people understand it, but it is honestly kind of misleading. 99.9% of the spirits do not care about humans at all. They live where they live, having their own lives, and when it comes to you, they do not care. There is no spiritual warfare going on out there. The wars around us, even in occult manner, are caused by humans, and humans are the ones fighting them, attacking, and of course suffering. You can explore spiritual worlds, get to know them, and have a life there. But as long as you live, be aware that you have duties here. Do not neglect your human needs and desires. Live the life you live here and make the best of it. Okay, this should be it. Thank you for your time. Go in peace and guard your heart well.